See you in 10 days.
Your wife is alive out there, Xavier. I can help you find her.
The episode opens on October 27, 1962, at the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis. An American general tells his wife a now well-known story, how the world was saved by a single man. Soviet naval officer Vasily Arkhipov, serving as second captain and brigade chief of staff on the B-59 nuclear submarine, was under strict orders. If the U.S. gained the upper hand, he was to launch a nuclear torpedo. Surrounded by U.S. destroyers and battered by depth charges, Arkhipov defied his orders. He refused to fire. It was a decision that likely prevented an all-out nuclear exchange between the world's superpowers, an exchange that would have ended life as we know it. In the present day, Sinatra reiterates to Xavier that Terry is still alive. She briefly explains why she had the expedition team killed when they attempted to bring a survivor back to the bunker. But she also claims that before they were executed, the team managed to set up shortwave transmitters that are still active. Survivors are out there, she tells him. They transmit distress messages constantly. Xavier isn't convinced. Terry was in Atlanta, one of the cities hit directly by a nuclear weapon. Or so he thought. Sinatra tells him that Cal did something on that day, something he never knew about. And that thing might be the key to everything. It began with the eruption of a supervolcano beneath the Antarctic ice shelf. The scientific models had predicted several days of seismic activity before the eruption. They were wrong. The volcano erupted within minutes. A catastrophic tsunami followed, blindsiding the world. Coastal nations were wiped out. The remaining superpowers, particularly Russia and China, saw an opportunity. They moved to seize land and resources. Chaos consumed the planet. Cal had known this was coming. It was why the Versailles Protocol existed. But he hadn't anticipated the sheer speed or the severity of the crisis. Now he was stuck, forced to evacuate to paradise while deceiving the American people, including his own staff. Meanwhile, Xavier was desperately trying to reach Terry, stranded in Atlanta. Every step forward was met with another setback. Cal, disgusted by the deception, was being forced to record a message to the nation, one that would be broadcast after his evacuation. A pre-recorded lie, disguised as a live broadcast. He hated it. Xavier, meanwhile, was juggling multiple crises at once. He had to manage the president's evacuation, keep a rookie agent from panicking, and, above all, get a call through to Terry. But time was running out. Russia and China prepared to launch nukes. Denmark was struck by missiles from an unknown source. The timeline was accelerated once again. Xavier finally found out where Terry was. He knew where she needed to go, but he couldn't reach her long enough to tell her how to get there. The weight of that realization breaks him. Spurred on by that moment, Cal makes a decision. He tells the world the truth. Live on air, he delivers an unscripted broadcast, revealing the true severity of the crisis. It causes chaos, even within the White House. Xavier knows what's coming. Even as he straps on body armor and loads an automatic rifle, his mind is on one thing: Terry. When the White House staff realizes they're being abandoned, panic sets in. The Secret Service turns their guns on the functionaries. Xavier, dragging Cal and the nuclear football through the chaos, is still trying to reach Terry. The final, crushing moment comes when a rookie agent, desperate to board the helicopter, is shot in the head by Robinson. Xavier barely registers it. All he's thinking about is Terry, and then it finally hits him. Terry isn't going to make it, and Cal knew she wouldn't. Xavier blames him for it, even though, deep down, he knows that Cal was just a cog in a machine. He trusted the scientist's timeline. He believed he could get her a plane to safety. He even tried, but circumstances made a liar of him. Xavier gets on the plane, reuniting with Presley and James. He has no other choice. He is, for the first time, a passenger. Because the real power isn't his, it's Cal's. and Cal is about to make the biggest decision of his life. Aboard Air Force One, the Joint Chiefs call in with a recommendation. The world is on the brink of an all-out nuclear war. If America doesn't strike first, they'll be wiped out. They advise Cal to launch the full nuclear arsenal immediately. But Cal has another option. The nuclear football contains 2 books. The red book contains the nuclear launch codes. The blue book contains something else. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, a general had proposed the ultimate failsafe, an array of linked EMPs designed to fry every electronic circuit on Earth. The downside, it would shut down the world, taking civilization back 500 years. The upside, it would disarm every nuclear weapon and give humanity a fighting chance. Cal makes his choice. He inputs the Blue Book codes. At the same moment, Xavier finally reaches Terry. On screen, both he and Cal watch the nuclear warheads in flight, including one heading straight for Atlanta. The EMP is spreading. It's a race. Terry's survival hinges on the EMP disabling the nuke before it hits. But Xavier never knew what Cal did. All he knew was that his satellite phone went dead, so he assumed Terry was gone. Back in the present day, Sinatra tells him the truth. The EMP got there first. Terry survived. To prove it, she plays one of the shortwave transmissions. A message from Terry. "I'm looking for my husband and my children." Then Sinatra drops another bombshell. She has Presley. The only way Xavier will ever see his wife and daughter again? Put Paradise back the way it was. If he does that, Sinatra will also reveal who murdered Cal, because the DNA from the crime scene doesn't match anyone from the bunker. His killer came from outside.
I told you to design me an underground city, a city for 25,000 people.
There's no amount of money that would allow you to excavate a space so large.
The episode begins with a flashback. This time, we go back to the original excavation of the vast Colorado landscape that would eventually become Paradise. Overseeing the operation is Anders, cold, inscrutable, and methodical. But amidst the chaos, a genuine friendship forms between project manager Trent and one of his West African employees, Adam. Unlike the others, Trent takes the time to pronounce Adam's real name. He even samples the traditional cuisine Adam brings to work. On rare occasions, he goes out of his way to get him authentic African beer. They never say it outright, but in a quiet, platonic way, they fall in love. Then Trent makes a horrifying discovery. The excavation is unearthing toxic residue. The whole project should be abandoned. But it can't be. Paradise is the only hope for humanity. Anders makes the call. Trent is removed from the project. The hazard remains a secret. As Trent watches in silent horror, Adam and the other workers start falling ill. One by one, they die. Haunted by grief and guilt, Trent tries to blow the lid on what's happening. Especially after Anders lets something slip, a calamity is coming. But no one listens. Trent spirals into obsession. He becomes a conspiracy-obsessed loner, consumed by anger and regret. And in his isolation, he builds a gun. He hides it in a boom mic. Then, disguised as a journalist, he infiltrates the White House. His target? President Cal Bradford. This, of course, is the assassination attempt Xavier stopped earlier in the season. Meanwhile, in the present, Sinatra drops a bombshell on Xavier. And the DNA found at Cal's murder scene doesn't match anyone inside Paradise. Xavier immediately heads to Robinson. He tells her to stand down, but also shares the DNA revelation. They agree the search should focus on arrival day. They go their separate ways. Xavier heads to the White House. Robinson goes to see Gabriella. Gabriella, meanwhile, is already drinking. Sinatra is losing her grip, desperately trying to contain the secrets Xavier has exposed. And worse, she's trying to stop Jane from killing Presley. But that's easier said than done. Sinatra wants Presley kept quiet, but at no point does she order Jane to kill her. Jane, however, implies that's the only way. For Jane, it's not even about power. She just wants Cal's Nintendo Wii, and she's more than willing to murder a teenager to get it. Sinatra tries to argue, but Jane hangs up. Later, Sinatra receives a chilling text. The problem has been eliminated. Even Sinatra is shaken. Gabriella, drowning in guilt over her complicity, is still trying to process everything when Robinson arrives. She asks for the psychological consultation records from arrival day. Only one suspicious entry stands out. Maggie, the woman who works at the diner. When Robinson and Gabriella confront her, Maggie breaks. She confesses, but she claims someone made her do it. Meanwhile, Xavier follows his own leads at the White House. He sifts through Cal's belongings, eventually finding the mixtape he made for Jeremy. Curious, he plays it. The first few seconds give him a clue. Cal recorded it in the library. That gives him an idea. Using the number written on the cigarette, Xavier tracks down a specific book in the library. A copy of James Spada's The Man Who Kept the Secrets, a biography of Peter Lawford, JFK's brother-in-law and Rat Pack member. Inside, he finds something shocking. Cal's handwritten transcriptions, all of the classified files from his presidential iPad copied by hand. Before Xavier can process it, someone strikes him from behind. Xavier comes to, vision blurred. He sees his attacker. Trent, the Paradise librarian, the former project manager, the would-be assassin, and, as it turns out, a prison escapee. As Xavier slowly regains his senses, Trent starts talking. Trent was imprisoned in Colorado, near the very excavation site he knew would one day become Paradise. When the world ended, he used the chaos to escape. Disguised as a guard, he found a couple who had been approved to settle in Paradise. He killed them. He took the husband's identity, and he gave the wife's identity to a woman he had met sitting in a car outside, Maggie. At first, he planned to exact revenge on Cal. But then something changed. He grew content in Paradise. He settled into a quiet life as a librarian. He thought he could let it go. Then, one night, he saw Cal in the library. The very night Cal made the mixtape for Jeremy. And in that moment, all of Trent's old rage came rushing back. The worst night of Cal's life, the night Robinson rejected him, the night his father crushed him, the night Xavier told him he'd only be forgiven when he was dead, was also the night Trent broke into his room and beat him to death. Trent takes the book and flees, determined to expose the truth, to tell the world what Paradise really is. Robinson finds Xavier, frees him, and they chase Trent together. The pursuit leads them to the highest point in Paradise, the rafters, where the complex lighting system creates the illusion of a sky. With nowhere left to run, Trent makes a choice. He throws himself from the top of the dome. He plummets through the air and splats onto someone's roof. Xavier heads straight to Sinatra to report what happened, but Sinatra has her own news. Through tears, she tells him Presley is dead. She believes Jane's lie, and she's devastated, but not as devastated as Xavier. He collapses, grief-stricken. Then, suddenly, he springs back up and pulls a hidden gun. He kills Sinatra's bodyguards and turns the gun on her. But before he can pull the trigger, Jane does it first. Jane tells Xavier the truth. Presley is fine. She's been with her the whole time. Overwhelmed with relief, Xavier rushes off to find her. Jane, meanwhile, has shot Sinatra non-fatally. She may need her later, but for now, Sinatra is left incapacitated, hooked up to a ventilator. Jane? She's playing the Wii, like she always wanted. Jeremy, inspired by his father's mixtape, takes a stand. If you don't like the world you built, Cal's voice echoes, then fix it. A resistance begins to form. The billionaire donors fight among themselves in Sinatra's absence. And Xavier, he's leaving, with Robinson's promise to protect his kids, with Presley and James's blessing, with Cal's notes in The Man Who Kept the Secrets. He's heading for Atlanta, for Terry. As Paradise's doors open, real sunlight washes over him. He mutters,
I'm coming, baby.